I am what Julian Cope calls a self-sabotaging non-careerist, which to some people is a bad thing, but to me is a badge of honour. I think that's why what I do is a job, but I never saw it as a career. Like I said, because I thought it would last 6 months or a year. I've never thought career, I've always thought job. I never thought, oh right, okay, I've started this music thing. I better be selling X amount of records by this time, or I better be playing to this amount of people by this time. Once you start on that career ladder, if your game plan doesn't quite work out, you start cutting corners and you actually end up a few steps back from where you want to be. So I've never thought of music as a career, it's a job. I've never had any career goals as such. But I think that's how I've maintained 25 years of career, by not being a careerist, by not having a career. So, I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But treat it as a job, you know, as Mark E. Smith said, people think rock and roll's easy, but if you do it properly, it's the hardest job in the world.
So you're in this shitty studio in Walthamstow, and you send that shitty thing out that you've really messed with, and then suddenly it blows up.
It was an interesting record that would appeal to a certain market, and I even went to a job interview with test pressings of the record under my arm. I went to a job to become an A&R man at London Records.
Excellent.
Yes, and the man interviewing me, a guy called Eugene Mancy, you know, when I walked through the door, I think his words were, "What the fuck are you doing there?" I was like, "Okay, so I've not got a job then." He said, "Well, no." He said, "What have you got there?" And he said, "Well, you know, that record's going to be really big." I said, "Well, we'll go through the formalities of an interview, but you do realise that record's going to be really big." And yeah, whatever you say. But then I think a few nights later, or a few weeks later, I DJ'd with Primal Scream at a gig in West London. I can't remember the name of the club offhand. And I played it, and the place went berserk. No one had ever heard it before. And then then I thought, well, perhaps there is something in it. But then I thought, well, it won't transfer outside London, because the scenes in London and the scenes in the north. Well, to give you an example, one of the DJ reaction sheets from a northern DJ that will remain nameless described it as soft southern shandy drinking shite. Yeah. Thanks for that, Chris.
I did try and scrub my name out.
So yeah, I didn't think it would transfer. You know, I thought it was a kind of parochial. You know, I thought it was a London thing, but it kind of took off, really.
What do you think it was? What do you think it was in that record that you did to it that made it go like that?
I really don't know. I think because it was.
What were you trying to do when you know, this is your first real proper foray into...
I just wanted to make a record that I would play myself, you know, that was kind of reflected the music I was playing, and it was of a certain tempo, and I wanted to have certain structures, you know, and also as well, because it was my first foray into the studio, I thought I had to make a big kind of splash, so it's kind of however minutes long it is, and everything after that, you know, everything in, you know, kitchen sink. We need another kitchen sink. Have you got any kitchen sinks? And in it went, you know, because I thought, you know, I had to make a big sort of gesture. You know, I had to make everything I did epic, and you know, which was a bit weird because all my favourite records were short records. You know, it was all about brevity. I wasn't a massive prog rock fan or anything. All my favourite records were 2 or 3 minutes long. But every time I went in the studio, I couldn't do anything under 10 minutes for some reason. But I think it was just that. It was just like, okay. I don't, you know, technically and musically, I'm not very talented, so I better just kind of throw everything in and make this big kind of brash gesture with loads of whiz bangs going off, and you know, people seem to like it. I mean, I really don't know what the attraction of that record is. I really can't put my finger on it because to me it wasn't that radical sounding. I had a lot more radical sounding records than that. But I don't know, perhaps it's the kind of wonky slapdash nature of it that people like, because it's full of glaring errors. like like.
Can you point some of those out?
Well,
so
because
next time I listen to it, I can have it.
Well, if you
completely
notice,
destroyed.
every bar at the end of every bar, there's a cymbal crash, which is just like a bit annoying, you know, like. But because I
turn that bit down.
I took the wrong bit of the loop, but it's just a 1 bar loop. You know, usually kind of cymbal crashes come every 4 bars or 8 bars, but this is every bar. A minor detail. Yeah. But you know, and it's full of sort of mistakes like that. But perhaps that's why, because it's not. Although I thought about it a lot, it doesn't sound like it sounds like it's a very natural sounding kind of record. It's not. It doesn't sound contrived, and it kind of came out of nowhere. And it kind of brought 2 sets of, you know, people that were into indie music and rock and roll, and people that were into the fledgling acid house scene. I suppose it kind of united people, you know.
So from being a non-careerist, doing something just that you wanted to play yourself, you suddenly had this thing that was really massive, and that must have meant a massive door opening on possibilities of
yeah. No, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, massive, you know, massive opportunities, but at the same time, really scared that I was going to be found out. You know, that someone was going to go, he's just an imposter, building site labourer from Slough. So yeah, and so I kind of went on the retreat. You know, it was this world. Music had been this world that I've been fascinated by from a very early age, and reading about it and various characters and myths and legends. And all of a sudden, I was thrust into the centre of it, and I kind of put the defences up a little bit and turned a little bit sort of snotty. You know. Got very defensive and was a little bit obnoxious because of that. Because I thought I was going to be found out. I thought someone was going to say, "But he's not wearing any clothes," you know. And so I kind of started believing in my own sort of myths and legends, although I'd only been at it a couple of years. But you know, all of a sudden,
what were they then?
Well, just running around, just being obnoxious. You know, throw drugs into the equation. You know, basically this dream world, this land of Oz that I'd watched from afar. All of a sudden, I was part of it, and it's a bit of a showbiz old chestnut, isn't it? You know, it happens in all areas of artistic endeavour. That if you've got enough people blowing smoke up your arse, you know, it can turn a young man's head. So it was. You know, I look back on that time. It was enjoyable, but it was also I was at a strange place in my mind, because you're being lured. You start believing your own press a little bit.
What was that?
I wasn't the well-rounded individual that you see before you this evening, Chris, by any means.
Are you well-rounded now?
Oh, reasonably, yeah.
So, and then you went on to do Screamadelica with them, which.
Well, you say with them.
Well, yeah.
I try and avoid having musicians in the studio when I'm working at all times.
So what did you do?
Well, I mean, the story's been told. I'm not kind of giving the game away. They recorded the songs, you know, the basics with an engineer, and then just pretty much gave them to me and an engineer called Hugo Nicholson, who I worked on it with. And they just left us to it, really.
So loads of creative freedom then to.
100%. There's only one. I did a version of Shine Like Stars, which they didn't like, and we went back and did it again. But yeah, I think neither of us had anything to lose at the time. You know, they didn't. I certainly didn't. So we were given free. You know, I was given free rein. They totally trusted me, and that's been my kind of approach to this day. Which is why I haven't produced many albums, because you say to a group, you know, it's great, I'll do it, but leave me alone. It's a kind of Martin Hannett thing. You know, don't have musicians in the studio when you're mixing an album. The bands love that concept. They think it's great, but the record company executives not so keen. So that's why I haven't done many out. You know, I did the Fuck Buttons album. They were there in the studio, but there's only 2 of them. They haven't got a drummer, and their entire kit fits into 2 suitcases, so it was reasonably easy. But yeah, I was just given free rein to do what I wanted, really, I didn't feel under any pressure at all. You know, I think if you went in the studio and you look at you've kind of got a blank canvas and you're thinking, oh, I've got to make this kind of important classic album, you're going to fall on your ass. But I didn't feel under pressure at any time. Maybe a little bit sometimes, because we were in an expensive studio and there were I had to have days off because I'd kind of overindulged the night before. and this studio was like $1,000 a day, sort of 20 years ago. It's quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
But that was the only pressure that I realised that I was in a kind of professional environment, and I should kind of act accordingly. But artistically, I didn't feel under any pressure whatsoever. And I think that's what makes that such a sort of timeless record. It doesn't sound contrived, and no one's really trying to, you know, no one really knew what they were doing. It's just kind of the random molecules came together and made this, and made a record, which is why you couldn't, you know, we couldn't do it again, because there's too much weight of history, and there'd be too much thinking done to come up with something as epic as that record. I mean, the things I always go back to when I get a bit jaded, the sort of bedrock of music that inspires me will be old rockabilly records and probably old roots dub records. That, you know, that's the kind of bedrock, that's the foundation. You know, I listen to a lot of other stuff, listen to a lot of new stuff, but the music that inspires me and informs me and takes me places that I can't describe. I hate using the word spiritual, it's a bit too hippie, but the music that I connect with, you know, on a raw, basic kind of soul level is old 50s rock and roll and roots reggae. I really don't know why. I mean, possibly because it's the first music that probably made me feel funny when I was a teenager. You know, hearing and pre-teenage, hearing 50s rock and roll, and just think I thought it sounded like it came from another planet. You know, which is a common story. You know, when people first hear rock and roll, you hear people say, well, it just sounded like it's not come from this planet, and the same with dub music.